everybody, my name is Marie Savage. I'm the owner of Banana Dog Vintage, and this is the Reseller Life. Episode 1 is called, Why Should You Be a Reseller? And the reason we're going to ask that question is, I think before anybody gets into business, they should be asking why they're there, what it involves, and whether or not they feel they'll be successful. So let's get the video started and find out if this is for you. Whatever you're looking for out of this video, I hope that you'll figure out if you can afford the time, the money, and the headspace to be a reseller. It's very important to really take stock of where you are and whether or not you have that kind of time. So let's talk about some of the things that take time as a reseller. And of course, the shopping is going to be the first thing on that list. But then you have to clean the things and you have to research them. That takes time. And you have to take the pictures and you have to do the listing. And probably at the beginning, you're going to be pretty slow. And it still takes quite a bit of time, even once you're good at it. You have to be able to handle your customers' questions and do the packing and the shipping. Maybe you have to go and get the stuff that you use for packing and shipping. You need to know how to manage and track your money. And that includes all of those fees that I think I mentioned before. You also have to know how to manage and track your inventory. Now, if you're new and you don't have very much, that may not be a difficult task. But as you start to grow and you get more inventory, you need to know, where am I going to keep it? How am I going to keep it organized? And will I be able to find the thing that sells in time to ship it when I said I would? And then, of course, you also have to live your life. And that's really important. Don't forget that maybe your family doesn't want to go thrift shopping every time they go out with you. And maybe they really don't want to see all the stuff you bought sitting on the dining room table for a week. It happens. We all know it happens. But we need to be cognizant of how other people are feeling about your job, your business, your hobby, whatever you want to call this, and how it encroaches on their life. Just be aware that maybe not everybody is having as much fun as you are. In the research episode, you're going to learn how to follow the clues that your item gives you. You know, I am this tall, I am this wide, I am this color, I am made of this material. And I'm also going to tell you how to think to the side. And what that means is you can expand your search by looking for related items if you can't find the one you're actually looking for. And I use this example. If you have a floral plate and you just haven't been able to track it down, but you think it might be part of a dinner set or a tea set, why not look for the teapot? And you may find it with the same pattern, and then you'll know the name of the pattern and potentially even the name of the manufacturer if somebody else has already done some of that research for you. And we'll also talk about why we don't rely on other people's research and we always do our own, but it might give you a really good starting point. So really important to learn how to look for stuff, to think to the side, and also what resources you can use. And I'll actually show you how I research different items. So I may take 1 or 2 items of my own and walk you through what I'm looking up and what I find and how that leads me to the next clue. Next episode, we'll talk about doing great pictures. And you want to do great pictures because that's one of the ways that you get customers to stay on your page, is they go, oh, wow, I really like the way they've set all this stuff up and I can clearly see what they're trying to sell. So we'll talk about how to use lighting to the best effect and whether or not you need fancy backgrounds or any background at all, and whether or not you can use other people's pictures to save a bit of time. And again, we'll focus really on what your customer needs to see. Talk about listing, because by then we know this item inside out. We know where it came from. We know that we have some great pictures of it. And now we're going to write a listing. And in our listing episode, we're going to talk about how to make yourself do the listing, because it is a chore. It's harder than you think. No, not harder than you think. Not as interesting as all the other tasks, because it's more like grunt work. You are just entering information. So you're entering measurements, or you're entering color, or you're entering the manufacturer. all of those details are very useful in your listing because it helps people find you. And you also want to know about keywords. What's going to bring people to your item who are looking for your item? We'll also talk about things like using alternative words. So if I am trying to sell a pitcher, a juice pitcher, I might also call that a jug because some people may use jug as the word that they are looking for. You want to go slow and check your listings for errors. I once had shipping on one of my items at $1,300. That was an error, and I should have caught it, but I didn't until about, I don't know, maybe a few days later when I was looking at how much money I might make, and it had this enormous number, and I thought, no, I don't have enough items up to make that much money. What's going on? And it was because of that shipping error. The other thing that you want to do is how to motivate yourself. And I think this is a really big part for a lot of people, for how to motivate yourself to do the listing part. It's really fun to go out and get stuff and to learn about stuff, but it's not maybe quite as much fun to do the listing part. And I want to encourage you to start good habits right at the beginning, because that'll make it easier later on. Don't get overwhelmed. Just do it slow and sure, and you will eventually turn into a great reseller because you'll have a pattern and you'll be organized and you'll be successful. Well, we got everything done, and now our items are up and people start asking us questions about them, things we maybe didn't think to include in the listing, or maybe they didn't read the listing well enough. That happens, and you need to know how to handle customer service. And you want to be polite, of course, and there are times where people get really outrageous with you and you'll have to drop the polite, but for the most part, you're just going to be, as Cesar Millan says, calm and assertive. That's your job. You don't want to get emotionally involved with any problem that may come up, whether they've told you that something broke or they want a refund or whatever. You don't want to be emotionally involved in that. You just want to handle it calmly. And that will make a great impression on the customer, and it will also save you a lot of grief. We put an awful lot of ourselves into this business in choosing what we're going to sell and, figuring out the price and researching it well and packaging it properly. And when something goes wrong, it can really be hurtful, but it's not personal. You really need to know that this is just business. And once you get the idea of how to make a great impression and answer questions well, you'll end up getting those great readings that you really want to have. And it's all through keeping your cool. In our miscellaneous episode, that'll probably cover, miscellaneous stuff. And that's going to include things like, what are all those weird abbreviations for? What is NIB? It's new in box. But, we may not be familiar with those kinds of terms when we first get started. So let's take a look at all kinds of abbreviations. And we can also talk about goal setting. How big do you want to get? How much can you actually do? How much money do you need to make? And how are you going to manage that? And we can talk a little bit about how to stay how to stay safe when you're selling locally or even online. So I do the majority of my selling locally. And really, it's not a great idea to have strangers coming to your home. I never open my door for them. They're just picking up outside. But I think in most cases, you really don't want to have people coming out to your house unless it's absolutely necessary and you have other people there. But I'm guessing by the time we get to this episode, you'll have a few ideas for me as well, and I'd be happy to include them. So feel free to contact me and let me know what else you might need to know about that I haven't already talked about by the time we get to the end of this introductory episode. Okay, packing and shipping. This episode is, well covered in lots of other people's videos. But you want to be able to talk about just some of the basics, like how to be sure that things don't break and finding free materials and why size matters, particularly in the US right now when they've just doubled some of their prices for their larger packages. And what do you want to include in your package? And there's about 1,000 other things around this. So my idea here is I'm going to give you the basics, and you're going to have to do the work just like everybody else does to figure out how much shipping costs from where you're at and with the packaging materials you are using, and how to understand a little bit about each one of the selling platforms methods for shipping or choosing shipping, because you always need to remember that shipping is your choice. You don't have to go with what they recommend. In the Managing Your Money episode, we're going to talk about how much to invest in inventory. It's something we've already touched on, but we'll go over that again because I think that's a really important topic for you, and how you're going to make the profit on it, and what else you want to really understand what's making you money and what maybe isn't. And once you understand that, you have to look at even further into the details, like what kind of fees you might be charged and how much is that pushing back against how much you think you're making. And there are other things too, like, do you have to collect taxes? Under what circumstances do you have to collect taxes? Now, I'm not going to go into detail for every single province or state. That's just not possible. But I can direct you to places you can look for that information. And I think you should look for that information, because you don't want to be caught out owing a whole lot of tax on something at the end of the year when you're not ready to pay it. So that's all about how to manage your money. And by the time we're finished with that episode, you're going to have a really good idea of how the money works in your business and what you need to pay attention to. Something else you really have to pay attention to, of course, is tracking your inventory. And you want to know if you have enough space for the inventory, how much inventory you're going to have, how much inventory do you need to have at one time, and where is it going to be stored, and how are you going to find it once it sells. You to other videos that are extremely good that covers these topics probably better than I ever could. My inventory is not terribly well organized at the moment, and I don't recommend that approach for you. So this will be our chance to talk about being organized on the physical level and not just the mental level when you go out. Now, I don't know that the next thing is really going to take an entire episode, but your life and relationships are incredibly important. You may have naysayers in your life, and that's not a whole lot of fun. And you may have people complaining because you're spending so much time either thrifting or listing, or basically ignoring them and really enjoying your new business or your hobby. So we should probably talk about how to keep your relationships with your friends and family in a good place while at the same time enjoying what you're doing. The only thing we have left to talk about is my hoard. I have a hoard. It's no longer a haul. I have things everywhere, and to make it worse, I had everything quite well organized in the upstairs part of my house before I decided to paint it, and had to move my inventory downstairs, which my kids helped me do. I have hundreds of items, so it was quite a chore to do it. Unfortunately, when we were doing it, we had a limited amount of time, so we started throwing things into bags and boxes to just get them downstairs. You can imagine what happened to sets of things. Even just salt and pepper shakers may not have ended up together. So I have this huge hoard in the basement, completely unorganized, and I'm not really sure what's in there anymore. And I think some of my enthusiasm at the beginning got the better of me, and I may have made some poor choices. You know, maybe. I can't guarantee it. I could totally guarantee it. So I think in my haul videos, instead of saying, hey, I bought this and I could sell it for that much, you may see, I bought this and I really wish I didn't. This is Marie Savage of Banana Dog Vintage, and this has been the Reseller Life. Do you know, should you be a reseller? If you haven't decided yet, watch a few more of the episodes in this series. And in the meanwhile, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you soon.